You ever notice how people love the idea of a forgiving God? Oh, they cling to it like a security blanket, do whatever they want, lie, cheat, hurt, destroy, and then whisper a prayer like it's some kind of magic eraser. He'll understand. He knows my heart. Cute. Real cute. But what happens when the door doesn't open? What happens when the voice you counted on says, "Depart from me"? Not in anger, not in rage, just final, cold, quiet, like a judge who's already heard all the excuses. Like a father who's watched you walk away one too many times and finally stops calling you back. You know what people love more than second chances? Third ones, fourth ones, 105th if they can get away with it. They treat grace like it's some kind of buffet. Go back as many times as you want. No limit, no questions, just pile your plate high with whatever you want and tell yourself it's all covered. No need to change, no need to mean it, just swipe the "he understands me" card and walk off smiling. But there's a problem with that. See, grace doesn't mean freedom to repeat. It means freedom to transform. But most people, they don't want transformation. They want a loophole. They say God is love, and He is, but they forget something. Love doesn't always say yes. Love draws lines. Love holds boundaries. Love lets go when it's been slapped in the face enough times. And yeah, He's patient, unbelievably patient, but even patience has a clock ticking in the background. It's quiet, subtle, almost polite, but it's there. Every ignored warning, every fake apology, every sin you dress up as a struggle. Tick, tick, tick. People think they can outsmart time. They think grace is just sitting there like some helpless old man with a big beard, waiting forever for them to get their act together. But one day that door shuts. One day the silence on the other end of your prayer isn't a pause. It's a response. People confuse mercy with permission. They confuse delay with disinterest. They think just because lightning didn't strike it means the heavens approved. They see no consequences and they start to believe there never will be. That's where they mess up. Because grace isn't blind. It sees you. It sees your secrets. It sees the times you said "forgive me" with no intention of changing. It sees the moments you cried, not because you were sorry, but because you got caught, and it keeps count. Not because it wants to punish, but because it wants to wake you, shake you, save you. But it can't do that if you keep using it like a shield to hide behind while you keep stabbing people in the dark. You ever wonder why some doors stop opening? Why some prayers hit the ceiling and come crashing back down like dead birds? It's not that God changed, it's that you stopped listening. You stopped respecting the gift. You made grace your excuse, not your motivation, and when you do that long enough, grace steps back. Doesn't slam the door, doesn't yell, it just leaves quietly. Like a guest who finally realizes they've overstayed their welcome and the host isn't coming back to check on them. People say God will never leave you. True, but you can leave Him. Over and over, in the little things, in the hidden things, in the justifications. And every time you walk away, something inside you hardens. Until one day, You hear his voice, and it doesn't move you. It doesn't scare you. It doesn't mean anything. That's when you know the grace hasn't run out. You have. You've burned through every ounce of awareness, every shred of conviction, until there's nothing left but the empty echo of what used to be a conscience. And the scariest part? You don't even realize it's happening, because you're still singing the songs, still quoting the verses, still pretending. But the fire's gone, the urgency's gone, the fear of God replaced with comfort, the kind that numbs you slowly, silently, until the idea of judgment becomes just another fairy tale you don't believe in anymore. That's what happens when you abuse grace. It doesn't snap. It fades. And you fade with it. This isn't about being perfect. Nobody is. But it is about being real. About not using forgiveness as a license to stay the same, about not throwing on a holy mask every Sunday and then cursing the world by Monday. Grace was never meant to be a cover-up for rebellion. It was meant to be the road out of it. But you've got to walk that road. You've got to take steps. Even if you stumble, even if you fall, the point is the direction. And if your direction is always back to your comfort, back to your excuses, back to your darkness, then don't be surprised when the voice on the other side of eternity says, I never knew you. Because grace isn't cheap. It costs blood. It costs pain. It costs a sacrifice you'll never fully understand. So when you treat it like a loophole, like a get-out-of-jail-free card, like a blank check you can cash whenever you want, you're not just playing games. You're mocking something sacred. And one day, the very thing you took for granted is going to be the thing that's no longer there to catch you when you fall. Funny how people like to say the name like it's some magic password, like just saying it gets them in the door. God this, God that, like they've got him on speed dial, like the louder they say it, the more holy they become. But here's the punchline. Not everyone who speaks his name knows him. You can wear the costume, say the lines, even play the role so well, you convince the crowd. But the director knows the difference. He always knows who's acting and who's real. And when the curtain falls, well, that's when the truth takes center stage. There's this idea that proximity equals relationship. You sit in a church, you read a verse, maybe cry during a song, and boom, relationship. That's rich. You can stand next to someone for years and still be a stranger. You can memorize their words, mimic their voice, even imitate their walk, and still not know their heart. People think if they stay close enough to the light, some of it will rub off on them. But light doesn't rub off. It reveals. And when it shines on you, what it finds can't be covered up by how many times you've said, Amen. You know what's even better? Watching people build entire personalities around religion. They turn it into a brand. They decorate themselves with it like armor. Cross on the chain, verse in the bio, hands raised in public. But behind closed doors, It's a different show. They use his name like a badge, like a label on a bottle, holy, approved, righteous. But the bottle's empty, or worse, filled with poison. They scream his name from the rooftops while stabbing his values in the back with their silence, with their choices, with their pride. It's not about what you say, it's about who you are when no one's watching. That's the part people skip. That quiet space between the noise, between the claps and the songs and the staged prayers. That's where it counts. That's where he looks. And if the only time you talk to him is when you need something, or worse, when people are watching, then who are you really talking to? Him or your own reflection? They like to say, God knows my heart. Oh, yes. Yes, he does. And that's exactly the problem. He knows the heart behind the praise, behind the performance, behind the public persona. He knows when the worship is just theater. He knows when the hands raised in church were the same hands clenched in rage the night before. He sees past the filters, past the perfect little facade. You think you can fool the one who made you? That's cute. The truth is, some people are so busy performing faith that they never lived it. They've memorized the language, mastered the timing, got the rhythm down to a science, but there's no fire, no intimacy, just echoes, recycled noise from someone else's conviction. And they think just because they're surrounded by believers, just because they speak the lingo, they're in. But faith isn't contagious. You don't catch it by standing near it. It's not smoke. It's fire. And one day, when the lights go out, when the show ends, when all the crowds are gone and it's just you and him, there will be no script to follow, no spotlight, no applause, just a voice, one voice. And it won't be asking what you said, it'll be asking who you were. And if all you've got to offer is words, empty, rehearsed, hollow words, then don't be surprised if the voice says back to you, "Depart from me." Not because he didn't hear your words, but because he never knew you. Knowing someone means time. It means surrender. It means honesty. But honesty's messy. And time takes effort, and surrender, well, surrender doesn't fit in the highlight reel, does it? Most people want a God who fits in their pocket, who co-signs their choices and blesses their ego. But that's not knowing him, that's using him. And there's a difference. So yeah, you can say the name, shout it, sing it, tattoo it, but that name isn't a shortcut. It's not a code to bypass the process. It's a relationship, and relationships cost something. They demand truth. They require change. And if you're not willing to give that, if you're just here for the look, the label, the applause, then don't act shocked when the door stays closed. Because not everyone who says his name knows him, and not everyone who knocks gets in. They say actions speak louder than words, but people still think they can whisper their way into heaven, like they can sweet-talk God with a few polished prayers and a couple of fake tears. They think if they sound holy enough, say all the right things in the right tone at the right time, they'll slide past the judgment unnoticed. But see, words are cheap. Anyone can say, I believe. Anyone can say, I'm sorry. But the real punchline, it's in what you do. 'Cause you can lie with your mouth, but your actions, they scream. They scream the truth, even when your lips are telling bedtime stories. People live double lives like it's normal now. Smile for the crowd, kneel for the camera, quote a scripture or two and then walk away like none of it means anything. Like God's blind. Like he's up there grading them on charisma instead of character. That's what gets me. They want the reward without the reflection. They want the blessing without the obedience. Like they can play both sides, like grace is some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card you can cash in right after sinning with a smirk on your face. But God doesn't watch what you say. He watches what you do when no one's clapping, when the stage is empty, when the lights are off, and the mask comes off with it. You ever notice how easy it is to talk about morals when you're not tempted? How strong everyone sounds when they're not in the fire? But when it's time to actually walk the talk, when the decision has a cost, that's when the truth comes out. That's when actions put the words on trial. Because talk is safe. Actions, they risk something. They show the real you, not the version you polish up for Instagram, not the character you play on Sunday mornings. The you that makes choices when no one's checking in. You can say you love him all day long, but if your steps keep walking you into places you swore you'd never go again, then maybe your feet are telling the truth. Maybe your habits are the real testimony. Because faith isn't found in a well-rehearsed prayer. It's found in the moments where you wanted to do the wrong thing and didn't. Or the moments where you did but came back bruised, bleeding, and begging for change, not applause. Real action doesn't look glamorous. It doesn't come with fireworks. Sometimes it looks like staying quiet when you want to scream. Sometimes it looks like walking away from the thing you've craved for years. Sometimes it's messy, but it's real. They think they can fool him, like he's watching the highlight reel and missing the behind the scenes. Like he's some naive old man up in the sky just nodding along to whatever song they're singing that week. But he doesn't need the show. He doesn't care about the performance. He cares about the pattern, the decisions, the evidence. Because when the final moment comes and everything you ever said gets stripped away, all that's left is what you did. People forget that. They forget that every action stacks up. Every choice becomes part of the case. And yeah, there's grace, sure. But grace wasn't meant to erase consequences. It was meant to empower change. And if you're using grace as a cover for rebellion instead of fuel for transformation, then you're not just playing games. You're gambling with your eternity. You're betting that God's too soft to mean what he said, that he'll ignore what your life was shouting just because you whispered his name at the end. You can memorize every verse, sing every song, cry every tear, and still hear "Depart from me." Why? Because you thought the words were enough. You thought the actions didn't matter. But they always matter, not because he needs proof, he already knows, but because you needed the process. You needed the grind, the fight, the sweat, because that's what makes faith real. That's what burns the lies away. That's what separates the ones who play religion from the ones who live it. It's easy to talk a big game when life's quiet. It's easy to say you believe when there's no pressure. But when temptation grabs you by the throat, when compromise comes dressed like comfort, that's when your actions take over. That's when the real sermon gets preached, not from a pulpit, but from your choices, from your patterns, from your steps. Because when it's all over and the talking stops, the only voice that matters is the one calling your name or turning you away. And it won't be based on what you said. It'll be based on what your life said when your mouth was shut. You ever meet someone who's been wearing a mask so long they forget what their real face looks like? That's the game now. Fake it till you make it, right? Except some people fake it so well, they forget there even was a real them to begin with. That's what happens when you play dress up with faith. When the act becomes the identity. When you've told the lie so many times, you start to believe it yourself. But you can't fake faith forever. Not to the one who sees past the costume. Not to the one who doesn't care how many prayers you post or how well you act in front of a crowd. They've made religion into performance art. Lights, camera, hallelujah. Oh, you've got the hand movements down, the tremble in your voice just right, maybe even a tear in the corner of your eye if it's a special occasion. But none of it sticks when you walk off the stage. You talk about transformation, but all you've done is build a better disguise. You've learned the lines, memorized the script, and now you're running a one-man show called Holy But Hollow. And you think nobody notices, but they do. More importantly, he does. See, real faith, it's raw. It's ugly sometimes. It struggles, it stumbles, but it shows up. It doesn't need a spotlight. It doesn't need applause. It just needs honesty. And that's the part most people are terrified of. Honesty. Because when the mask drops, what's underneath might not be so easy to sell to the crowd. Might not be pretty. Might not be lovable. But that's where the real relationship starts. That's where faith breathes. In the mess, in the silence, not in the show. The problem is, most people would rather be admired than healed. They'd rather be seen as righteous than actually be right with God. Because healing takes work. Realignment takes pain. It means letting go of the character you created and facing the truth about who you are without the act. And that's not marketable, is it? That doesn't get likes. That doesn't get followers. So they stay in costume, stay in character, and eventually they forget the lie becomes life, and life becomes a lie. You can fake it for your pastor, you can fake it for your friends, you can even fake it for yourself, but the mirror doesn't lie when the lights go out, and neither does God. That voice inside you, the one that used to whisper warnings, yeah, it gets quieter every time you ignore it, until one day it stops. Not because it gave up, but because you did. You trained yourself not to hear it. You chose the mask over the mirror. And now when he speaks, all you hear is silence. It's easy to pretend when things are good, when no one's testing you. But when the pressure hits, when temptation crawls into your lap and looks you dead in the eye, that's when the mask cracks. That's when the faith you claim to have gets exposed for what it really is, or isn't. Because real faith doesn't fold when it's inconvenient. It doesn't vanish when it's challenged. And it sure as hell doesn't wear a mask to avoid discomfort. There's something terrifying about becoming so good at faking faith that you fool yourself. You start building your identity around the performance, around the image, around what you want people to think you are. And eventually you stop seeking transformation because you're too busy maintaining the illusion. And admiration isn't intimacy with God. So you keep performing, keep acting, keep rehearsing your lines, all while the fire inside gets dimmer, all while the connection gets weaker. And one day you'll reach for him and realize you're not even sure who you're talking to anymore. Because you've spent so long in character, you forgot the sound of his voice, you forgot the feel of his presence, and worst of all, you forgot what it was like to be real in front of him. People say God looks at the heart, and they're right, but they forget what that means. It means he sees past the prayers, past the good deeds, past the performance. He sees the intentions. He sees the motives. He sees the part of you that you've buried under layers of religious plastic. And if what he sees isn't real, then neither is your faith. It's just a well-dressed corpse, a spiritual mannequin in a world obsessed with appearances. And here's the twist. He's not mad at the mess. He never was. He can work with broken, he can work with honest, but he can't work with fake. You can't heal what you pretend isn't sick. You can't grow what you refuse to expose. And you can't build a relationship with a God you only meet in costume.